Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Katello Sprint 37 demo. For a brief, quick reference, the agenda is posted here and available on the Sprint 37 wiki page within the Foreman Redmine, with links to the stream and event page, as well as I said, the agenda. So we're going to start by myself and Justin talking about Katello 2.0 and EL7 builds and what we have done around getting this first release of new Katello out in the wild. The current state of Katello 2.0 is as a release candidate. This release candidate was released roughly 2 weeks ago. And we have fixed a few minor issues that users have found and should release the full release within the next 2 days. So along with this 2.0 release, we've made a strong effort to revamp our website and provide new documentation and content for users, especially to bring them up to speed with the changes in architecture and deployment, as well as provide some user-facing workflows to help users get accustomed to our different types of content and entities. So this is a quick view of the new website with a quick link to get started. So for those of you out there watching this that want to get started and try out either a 2.0 version of Katello or the latest and greatest, you can jump right into the installation guide. On the left-hand side, clicking Get Started will take you to the documentation section. Following the doc link at the top will also take you to this section, where here you will find API reference, release notes, and the best place to get started when working with any of our entities. The user guides, they are all laid out in such a fashion that they provide some ideas of what you would want to do with this particular entity, definitions for the terms that you'll find throughout the document, and screenshots of the workflow as you go through it, to help highlight what you should see and how to move around within the app when following a particular workflow. You'll also find developer guide information for those that would like to contribute back to Katello. There's also a community section to help with how to get support and how to contribute. And we've begun a collection of helpful troubleshooting that include how to work through troubleshooting an issue within the application itself, an issue with the backend service, a task, some frequently asked questions that we've collected over the years, and some information about how to generate and use a debug certificate. Along with trying to make installation clear and easy for users, we have previously shown off our Katello deploy tool, which provides both direct deployment and vagrant deployment of Katello nightlies. We're happy to announce that this now includes two things. One, the ability to spin up and install on a CentOS 7 vagrant image or directly onto a RHEL 7 image, either the nightly or 2.0. Vagrant boxes can be spun up directly as a 2.0 install or a nightly install. So you can have both sitting side by side either way. And as I'll point out, via direct deployment, if you prefer to spin the box up yourself and install, you can run our setup script itself, supporting those 4 major OSs, and specify the version And we will continue this in future releases to make it easy to spin up any particular version of Katello as it comes out, including, as always, our nightly bleeding edge releases. All right, so I'm going to now turn it over to Justin to cover a few other topics that came about with some of our 2.0 release tasks.
All right, so while working on the 2.0 release, it became apparent that our repository structure was extremely convoluted and confusing. So you can see here the current repository structure, and if you notice the 1.4 repos, there's 5 repos for. That would mean for nightly there was actually 4. Now that we don't ship our own foreman, for 2.0 there would have been 4. For 1.3 there was 5. For 1.2 there was 4. For 1.1 there was 4. So quickly for every release we're adding 4 or 5 different directories, which makes it very difficult to navigate, and it is somewhat confusing on what things were. So we spent just a little bit of time rewriting the mash scripts coming from Koji, as well as rewriting the scripts that cloned the data from Koji to Fedora hosted. We were actually also copying in Foreman's repositories and some of Pulp's repositories from Koji into our releases directory. So there was a lot of work that needed to be done there to not do that, basically. It went back to when Katello was the only one using Koji. So you still see the 1.4 is taking up a lot of, or taking up 5 directories, and that's simply because we didn't want to re-release the Katello repos RPM for 1.4, but hopefully that will go away soon. But now you just see a simple 2.0 and nightly directory. If we go into 2.0, it's then broken down by Candlepin, client directory, Katello, and Pulp. And this, I don't think many of us on the team had worked with the mash scripts before actually editing them. So it allowed us to gain a little bit of knowledge in that area too. And as part of this also, we got Katello fully built on RHEL 7. Pulp was already being built. Candlepin was not, so thanks to Jesus, he got our Candlepin builds for us. So now you can do a full install on RHEL 7, as you can see all of the packages here. And one of the future tasks is to go through and, if you notice the number of RPMs here, oops. Versus the number of RPMs in 6 server, there's probably easily half to a third in 7. There's a lot of junk that we don't need anymore. So we have a task that we need to do to clean up what's actually being published for 6 server as well. And as Eric said, you can deploy RHEL 7 just like you can, or CentOS 7 just like you can with CentOS 6 using Vagrant Deploy. That makes it very easy. Setup.rb has been modified as well to deploy either operating system.
All right, thanks, Justin. Are there any questions about RHEL 7 builds or Katello 2.0 or our new website and content? All right, so moving along, next up will be Mike to talk about using Katello disconnected behind a proxy. If you're talking already, Mike, we can't hear you.
Check 1 2 1 2.
Ah, there you go.
Sorry about that. I'm going to show what it takes to get Katello disconnected running behind a proxy. there's two main things that you need to do. So on this demo host, I've already pre-installed Katello installer, Katello disconnected. During the configuration phase, after you've installed it, you need to go and set up your pulp configuration files. Future versions may automatically do this with the setup call. So in the server plugins directory, we have two files that are critical to get configured correctly, the Puppet and Yum importer files. You can see here I have the proxy information configured in here, just to prove that. I thought I had this. Just going to show that I am behind a proxy here. Running inside our lab. Just getting the syntax right. So, see, I'm going through the proxy there, and if I do that without the proxy line, it should fail. You can see it can't connect. All right, so once we've got our setup behind a proxy, and we configure the two JSON files, all you need to do after that is just import your manifest. There's a couple new options here. Specify the proxy host, proxy port, and proxy user and proxy password. Manifest. And I won't run this now, but what this does is it actually scans the CDN and determines what repositories are available for import. Takes a minute or two. I don't want to need a demo here. After you've done that, there's nothing else to do from a user perspective. You're pretty much good to go. You can then have one repository enabled. The SAM RPMs directory or repo. Sync And I just restarted this right before I left. So barring unforeseen demo failures, that would actually sync your RPMs and you'll be good to go. That's it.
All right. Any questions for Mike? All right. Next up will be Stephen to show us auto search for Katello related entities within mission filters.
So what I'm going to demo is enabling the auto search completion on Katello models. So when you're working with Foreman's RBAC and you want to add a new filter for a user, you get a selection. So you can see both the Foreman and Katello models here all in one place. So let's do one on activation keys. And if I want to filter this to limit what a user can do, we now actually autocomplete on this. So you can limit which things a user can see. So in this case, I have 2 activation keys in this Katello. But what I'm going to do is limit the scroll to only looking at the testing one. So I have a user that is a member of this role. And if I log in, the only thing I can do is see activation keys. And if I look at the list, I can only see the testing key. The autocomplete is just a general Foreman auto. It can actually be used for things like model searching if we ever want to enable that feature. But for now, it's just enabled on the role filter. That's really about it. Any questions? All right, thanks.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. Next up will be Yvonne to show off Hammer Product Sync.
Okay, hello. I hope you can hear me. So let me share my desktop. Okay, so you should see my Chrome now. So this sprint, I've merged the work being done around the bulk actions in general through the Foreman tasks and line flow, and the first part of the process of getting the bulk actions through the line flow was the repository syncing. So we have the place where we sync a couple of repositories at once on multiple places. So the simplest one is you have the list of repositories and you select a bunch of them and you want to synchronize. So when you go and do that, bulk action is actually triggered with parameters to synchronize the repositories, and as there might be many of the repositories, we show just the first one just to give the user a clue what the bulk action is about. And the important thing is that this is just like the task representing the bulk action itself, but the subtasks are there as separate entities. When I go to the details of the task, which brings me to the Foreman tasks page, I can see just a brief description of what happened, and I can get the list of the subtasks that the bulk action was made from. So you can imagine if you synchronize two 100 repositories at once. In one bulk task, you want to be able to list the subtasks in this way, and basically they are then independent. So there is the also from the details of the task, I can go to the parent task and see what triggered this actual task. So this gives me the whole overview of the action, and I can see details later. So this was done for the selected repositories. Also, if you think about syncing products, that's nothing else than bulk action on syncing a set of repositories. So when I go into the product and sync now, it takes me again to the bulk action with another two tasks. And I can wait again for this to finish. We have the product syncing in a couple of places. So when we select, let's say, these two products and set bulk actions, I can again sync and surprise, surprise, another bulk task. We have just two tasks here. Probably the one repository was not given a URL we can sync from, and for this demo to be complete, we need to do the same also through the command line. So just there's a new action on the product called synchronize, which synchronize all the repositories in the product, and you can see the additional representation of the task triggered through the command line. So this is the progress of the bulk action here. So it works the same as from the UI. And that's probably it. So the important thing is that we have now the syncing of bulk actions through the Dyneflow, and every downflowed action that we have right now in the Katello can be turned into the bulk state. So if we have deletion of, let's say, 5 repositories, we can go and maybe one, I'm not sure if we, how interested are we in the source code, but if I go to the product, synchronize, and if I synchronize just one repository, it would be like repository sync and one repository to sync. If I want to do a bulk action from that, I will plan the bulk action here, choose what action should be triggered on every component, and the list of components or resources is given in the third argument. So this is all you need to do to get the bulk action actually work. So that's just for the completion of the demo, and that's all I want to show today. Any questions? Okay, if not, I will stop sharing and turn on the next slide.
All right, thanks, Yvonne. Next up we have Justin to show off checksum support on repositories.
Alrighty, let me share my screen.
Ten sharing toho
Okay. So previously, if you synced a rel5 chat or repo, it would sort of figure out that rel5, or we know rel5 cannot handle SHA-256 checksums, which is the default that Pulp generates its repositories with. So when you sync a rel5 repo, Pulp actually looks at the repo and determines that it is a SHA-1 repo and sets that on the repo in Pulp itself, so it knows to publish with the correct checksum. However, for custom repositories, if you're uploading content directly or whatnot, or even if you're syncing, you may want to be able to specify exactly that you want SHA-1. So now we've added a checksum field where you can select default, which is fine in most cases. Oh, you can't see the drop down. SHA-256 if you explicitly want to do SHA-256, or SHA-1 if you explicitly want to do SHA-1. And there's a little help tip, or a little tip here to suggest why you may want to use SHA-1. As part of this also, as you may have noticed, we're hiding items that are not relevant to the particular repository type now. So if I go ahead and save that as SHA-1, and we can revisit it, and you see here it's now on the edit page. We can change it, which again you can't see the drop down. If we navigate to the repository, there's no packages in it, but we can look at the repo data and see that it is actually being published as SHA-1. If we go back here and change it to say SHA-256, we ought to be able to click here and see it update to SHA-256 now. So this should allow customers or users to use custom repos with rel5 more easily or at all. And that's about it. Are there any questions? All right. Sorry. It's okay. I'll hand it over to David next.
Cool. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Do you guys see my terminal? No? Yes?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool.
Video, is that what you mean?
No, it's a terminal. This sprint I worked on content commands for the CLI. Previously, there was no way to view packages, errata, Puppet modules, package groups for repositories, both in library and for published content views. So we wanted to add that so that people could, of course, see what content they had. So to begin with, I'm just gonna create some products, repositories. I'm just using a small Zoolander repo for this demo, but I'm going to synchronize it. And now we can list the packages for this repo that we just synchronized. And this is one of the new commands. I'm just going to display them all, 200. I think there's only 20 though. There we go. Also, I can, if I want to see more details, I can look at the info screen. That gives me like the, you know, like license, description, stuff like that. Also, I can list out the package groups for my new repo. And if I want to see, you know, like what packages are in a particular package group, I can do that with the info. It'll tell me like the default, mandatory, conditional, optional packages. And also I can list out the errata for my repo. There's also a info for that. And here's the puppet module command. And this is another repository I had synced. And also, one thing I added was the ability to see packages for a content view version. I don't know how helpful this is, but it may be helpful, I think, at least for Puppet modules. Or I can display the errata for a content view version. I think that's pretty much it for the commands. I had one other thing to just demo really quick as well. Let me see here. One other thing I added this sprint was validates links from database. This was a gem that Foreman added, I think a couple months ago. And before we were all manually checking fields for their links to make sure that they did not exceed the database. But this automatically does it for us. It checks the links in the database and will validate fields for us. The reason you see it here, the reason I'm not checking label is because the field length is 255, but the label validator checks for 128. Probably eventually we can change the field to just 128 and then have validates links from database check it. So whenever you create a new model, just throw that in there and you'll automatically get the validation for links from the database. And that's pretty much it.
All right. Thanks, David. So up last is Andre to show off new empty tables and what a user will now see in Katello.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, so basically I modified how empty tables are viewed. Before, if you were on a page where a table was and the table had no content, we would just see a table header and then nothing. Now we get this info message telling us that the table is empty and provides us with a hint what to do. So now I will create a new GPG key. I will add my GPG key. Here some random content, save. And now we have table with content. If I remove the key, if I remove the key, yes, I will get again hint telling me that the table is empty. It's not only for GPG keys, it's also for some other tables as well, for content view and others. That's about it.
All right. Thank you, Andre. Well, that concludes the end of our presenters. So now we're going to answer questions from the Q&A app coming from those watching the live stream. So So I'll select and read out the question. If I call on you, it's because it's in your area. Please answer appropriately. So I'll start with one that I accidentally tried to answer earlier, since I didn't know how the app actually worked. The question is around the CLI doc page on Katello.org and being broken. That is currently an open pull request to our website GitHub repository, and that guide should be up in the next day or two as part of our release. Next question. This one looks like it's for you, Stephen. Do we have any documentation as to what arguments or syntax can be used with the autocomplete feature?
I don't think there's actually any documentation. It's a Foreman feature. But if you just type in the box and hit the down arrow, it will show you all of the possible arguments and options you can use. So you have equal signs, fuzzy matching, and or not, and other things like that. If you want documentation, I'm sure a PR to Foreman manual would be welcome.
All right, thank you. Next question. I believe this might be for David. Or do packages have integer IDs besides their UUID?
I don't think so. And maybe Justin can correct me if I'm wrong. I only see an ID field, which is like their UUID.
Yeah, that's the ID in pulp. The UUID is, and that's all that we don't give it any other sort of ID.
All right. And the last question. Are the parameters displayed deep links to the respective entities? I believe this question is for you, Yvonne, with respect to the past pages that you were showing.
Yes, so yeah, they should be, or they should link or take you to the detail of the entity. I've just noticed there is an error, or for the Bayesian type links, it uses the old way for determining the URL. So we might want to update that, but it works for organization at least. So yeah, it should take you to the records itself.
All right. That concludes the demo, unless there's any further questions or last-minute questions. All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming, and those that watched on the live stream. For those that watch this after the fact, it will be posted to YouTube and available for anyone to view. Thanks, everybody that presented. See ya.